నమస్కారం.
అందరికీ నమస్కారములు. నమో నమః. సర్వేభ్యో నమస్కారః. Today is another good Saturday afternoon. We are going to have another good, very interesting topic from Achyut Purushottam Karveji. Today's topic is Maheshwar Sutras as Upadesha. We will start this session with reciting Vande Mataram as part of our paying respect to our country. And then after that, we'll do Prarthana. And then, though it is not required that Achyut ji needs introduction to all of you, but there may be say a few people who have joined late. I mean, first time. So I will briefly introduce him to all of you. After that, we will hand over the platform to him. Now I'll recite Vande Mataram. Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujalam Sufalam, Manayja Sitalam, Sasya Syamalam Mataram, Vande Mataram, Subhrajyosna Pulakitayamini, Pullakusumita Drumadala Sobhini, Suhasini Sumadhura Bhashini, Sukhadam Varadam Mataram, Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram. Okay, now we will start the session with Prarthana. I'll request H.P. Rao garu to do the Prarthana, please.
हरिः ओम्. सर्वेभ्यः नमस्कारः. प्रथमं ध्यानम् एकं निमिषं, तदनन्तरं त्रिवारं ओङ्कारं, तदनन्तरं प्रार्थनागीतानि. अस्तु, आरम्भं कुर्मः. ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपवस्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पद आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः ॐ महागणाधिपतये नमः। ॐ प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामवत्र्यवतु। ॐ सरस्वत्यै नमः। हरिः ॐ। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। मातृदेवो भव पितृदेवो भव आचार्यदेवो भव अतिथिदेवो भव। ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवोपास्महे। वागर्धाविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्धप्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। हरिः ओम्। नमस्कारः। सर्वेभ्यः स्वागतं व्याहरामि। धन्यवादाः।
ఓకే, ధన్యవాదములండి. Now it is my pleasure and the privilege to introduce Sri Achyut Purushottama Sarveji. To briefly explain, to tell about him, he has been studying the tabla of Ahmad Jan Tirakwa for the past 50 years, trying to figure out the reason for the exquisite lingual sounds he could produce on the tabla. He was the first to point out that this technique of playing tabla was the outcome or reflection of a chaste recitation of the compositions. To reveal the chaste phonation of letters, he took the refuge of the Maheshwar Sutras. In 2015, after study of 10 years on the Maheshwara Sutras, he recorded his findings on 64 letters of the Sanskrit language and 18 anus in his book, revealing the Atlantis of Sanskrit phonology. He has also been working with the children, teaching them to read and write the Devanagari script. In his effort, he was guided by Pandit Vasudevacharya Joshi, a Vedic Pandit, and Professor Shivakumar Chaturvediji, a professor of Sanskrit grammar at Bharatiya Sanskrit Samsthanam, Lucknow. And with this very brief introduction, let us request Achyut ji to start his webinar, please. 1 minute. Achyut ji.
So, should I start?
Yeah, please start. If you want to share any document, you can do so.
Yes, that I will do. So, today is a great day that I have been given an opportunity by Veda Sanskrit Samiti for presenting this subject as being Maheshwar Sutras as Upadesha. Today, or over the past many decades or centuries, the Devanagari script has been used to instruct the basic alphabet. This has posed tremendous problems for students who cannot pick up the script, neither can they phonate the tongue properly or read and write. Secondly, even though Sanskrit has been introduced in our schools at 5th or 8th standard, and millions of children are taking up Sanskrit as a second subject or a third subject, we do not find anybody around us proficient in Sanskrit or a wish to study Sanskrit. Now this is on account of that the alphabet of Sanskrit has not been taught. Many children who opt for Sanskrit in schools cannot read Sanskrit because of their vernacular tongue. This effort of mine is basically directed towards making Sanskrit a language which could be pursued by children right from primary stage, not at 5th or 8th standard. And this can be easily achieved by introducing these Maheshwar Sutras as instruction for language learning, whichever the language may be. It may be Marathi, it may be Telugu, it may be English, it may be German, French, or any other language. Because the Maheshwar Sutras point to nature given human sounds, which have been compiled in the Maheshwar Sutras. The Maheshwar Sutras are not Sanskrit specific, but their instruction is absolutely necessary for any child or person to learn to speak or recite Sanskrit. This webinar of mine is directed at how I came to this conclusion over the past 20 years, looking at the various problems that children face while picking up the basic Indian alphabet, that is A, I, E, E, or the consonants, and a remedy towards it. I have tried instructing the Maheshwar Sutras to children from 1st to 4th standard with great success. So this article will take one and lead him to the importance of instruction of the Maheshwar Sutras in education as such. Because language is the basic tool through which humans have evolved. And if that language tool is not well evolved and developed, it reflects in the child's ability and potential to grow. So therefore, I am presenting this topic. This topic will start with an introduction to how I arrived at it through all these years and what led me to engage myself in these Maheshwar Sutras. Sutras numbering just 14 in number, and how they can impact the whole life of a child and make him more capable of communicating properly, understanding communication, and developing his thought process. So I'll present the notes that I have brought out for you. And so is it presented? Can you all see it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mahoday. Mahoday.
I'll start and I'll stop at each para. Those participants can question it or put up their questions piece by piece instead of putting the questions at the end. Maheshwar Sutras as Upadesha. Upadesha in English would mean a precept, meaning a command or principle intended especially as a general rule of action. In Sanskrit pedagogy, it means an instruction orally rendered by a guru to his shishya. The Maheshwar Sutras can also be defined as the axioms on which the Ashtadhyayi has been written. Each rule of the Ashtadhyayi needs, therefore, to be interpreted within the framework of the letters enunciated in the Maheshwar Sutras. The Maheshwar Sutras, therefore, serve as Upadesha because they provide the fundamental instructions on which the entire edifice of Sanskrit grammar, particularly Panini's system, is built. They combine spiritual significance, pedagogical utility, and linguistic precision, serving as a timeless guide for those who study Sanskrit and its grammar. As such, the Maheshwar Sutras as Upadesha serve multiple purposes. They are a divine revelation, a phonetic foundation, a tool for grammatical precision, and a guide for linguistic analysis, all within the sacred tradition of Sanskrit. Their role as the foundation of Panini's grammar system, combined with their spiritual and practical significance, makes them essential for anyone studying Sanskrit, both from a linguistic and a spiritual perspective. So this is what the Maheshwar Sutras are all about. Patanjali has dealt with with Sanskrit grammar, not the Maheshwar Sutras as such, but Sanskrit grammar in his first Anika, in his Paspanika. So all might know what he says about Sanskrit grammar. So now I'll start. The background. As, as a schoolboy, I used to find it intriguing as to how was it that each object around me had a name. Again, my parents had named me Achyut, and I discovered that many could not phonate it as I expected them to phonate. Some would call me Achyut, others Achyut, and my anglicized teachers had great difficulty in calling my name. All this experience made me become inquisitive about words, English or otherwise. As a college-going student, I realized that though I could read each and every word in the book, the word faced me to be nothing more than human sounds bereft of meaning. Being anglicized, I could not commit sentences to memory. My tryst with words actually began when I started taking tabla lessons from my guru, Pandit Narayan Joshi. On the first day itself, he asked me to commit to memory a composition which read as follows. The composition reads, Dha kata khinna tuna, kirdha kata khinna tuna, kinna kitataka tatir kitataka, dhita dhaginna dhatraka dha. In the normal pace, as it is played on the tabla, it would be Dha kata ginna tuna, kirdha kata ginna tuna, kinna kitataka tatir kitataka, dhita dhaginna dhatraka dha kata ginna tuna. The composition, in spite of not having any literal meaning, mused my ears and thus created curiosity. And for the next several years, committed my many compositions to memory and began attempting to play them. It was my fortune to be introduced to the tabla of Amazon Thirakwa, who was known as the Mount Everest of the tabla, the one and only one in the generations to come in his own generation also and in future generations, even today. Unhackneyed and crisp in presentation of tabla solo, unduplicatable by the most skilled. His name and fame provoked the believer in me, believing that no human practice is mystical or unreproducible. My guru, Narayan Joshi himself, the son of the noted violinist and classical vocalist Pandit Gajanan Rao Joshi, was entrusted to bring back the knowledge of the tabla as existed in the tradition. Narayan Joshi, the one and only one who studied the tabla with Amajan Thirappa for 15 long years, picked up each and every nuance of his guru's rendition, observing him daily while he presented a solo or while he rehearsed at home. What is seen by the naked eye is what is imitated. Now a child imitates what it hears. Any student studying instrumental music is first drawn to the movements that his guru makes while he studies the instrument. However, what draws him towards it are its music. With Narayan Joshi, it was no different, believing that the technique with which he played was the reason for his success. That is, the reason for his success was the technique. My association with Narayan Joshi began after the death of his guru Amajan Thirappa. At that time, one could see him rehearsing the compositions which he had learned hours on. He gave me an opportunity to observe his finger movements while he played the compositions he had learned. At the same time, I continued hearing the recordings of Amajan Thirappa and associated it with the rendering of Narayan Joshi on the tabla, which matched. However, over the years, I observed that in spite of Narayan Joshi's presentation, virtually tallying with that of Amajan Thirappa, the effect was not up to that which Amajan Thirappa achieved with the same technique. The reasons thereof had to be observed and investigated. Doubts arose when Amajan Thirappa used to say that if I ever were to be born a second time, I would prefer to be born as my Guru Munir Khan, of whom he used to say, he would not play the tabla as his hands were not fit for it. However, his recitation was as if that of Saraswati. I therefore tried to move forward by interviewing Munir Khan's student, Pandit Ganpatrao Dowri from Sangli, and asked him how he would teach. The answer I received confirmed my doubt. He said Munir Khan never used to teach how to play. Instead, he would recite the compositions and ask the student to attempt to reproduce the notes in the composition on his tabla. It was thus obvious that Amajan Thirappa had evolved a technique which would reproduce the notes in the recitation of Munir Khan. Amajan Thirappa studied with Munir Khan for 30 long years. In the 90s, therefore, my attention shifted from that of reproducing the technique of Amajan Thirappa to that of recitation of tabla compositions. As no recordings of Munir Khan's recitation was available, I started reciting the compositions which I knew, those being taught by Narayan Joshi, while I listened to Amajan Thirappa's tabla. This exercise was that of imitation, lingual in the other way around. Amajan Thirappa heard and reproduced it on the tabla. What I attempted was listening to the tabla. I tried to reproduce it in recitation. At about the same time, I had the fortune to listening the recitation of the Bhagavad Gita by Pandit Vasudevacharya Joshi and was impressed by his diction. I therefore decided to learn Sanskrit from him. When I asked him how should I start, he asked me to commit the Bhagavad Gita to memory. However, I was in service and could not devote time for it. I therefore requested him to record the Bhagavad Gita for me so that I could repeatedly listen to his rendering and reproduce his diction. Three things that I learned from his recitation were the accurate phonation of the short and long vowels, the intonation part of his diction, and the clarity of phonating the padas in spite of adhering to the Sandhi rules. In the late 90s, I resigned from my job and started tutoring students from 5th standard to 10th standard. This gave me an opportunity to listen to different students while they read, where I found that each student phonated words differently. I did not read the lesson for them, lest my diction, which I did not consider to be standard, be imitated by them. I only helped them in pronunciation where they could not read. This exercise continued for 10 long years, at the end of which I concluded that in spite of being capable of reading, they could not pick up meaning while they read, thus resulting in a wide range of scores. There were three different children. The first one who could not read Devanagari even at the age of 13. With this child, I had to teach him the Devanagari script. While teaching, I had to phonate the alphabet. And while doing so, I realized that the class consonants, that is Ka, Cha, Ta, and Pa, of a particular class can be phonated one anterior to another or one posterior to another, as Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha, Nga, or Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha, Nga. So a doubt arose which one of the two was the right one. In the second case, I found that a child with his mother tongue Marathi could read fluently, but his score would hardly cross 20%, showcasing that he barely understood what he read. I even checked. I asked him to read a sentence and reproduce it, at least meaning-wise, which he could not do. In the case of a third child, whose mother tongue was Marathi, but was schooled in an English medium school, read English fluently, but hardly scored 4 to 5% marks. All this indicated that linguistic skills in children varied widely and no specific reasoning could be given for their wide distribution. This experience shattered my belief that those who could read understood what they read. I thus shifted my focus to primary school children, concluding that it is in the age group of 5 to 10 years that basic lingual skills develop. On the other side, Amazon Thirakwa used to say that the compositions of the tabla could not be scripted. The reason being that they contain lots of nuances which cannot be reflected in the script. However, my Guruji was keen on documenting in script whatever he had committed to memory. So after the death of Amazon Thirakwa, he documented all compositions he knew in script. Being closely associated with the project of documentation of the composition, I asked him whether those who will read the documentation would reproduce the way you expect them to reproduce. The answer was a big no. I therefore goaded him to recite what he had documented in script, which I then recorded for the sake of documentation. This long journey made me realize that I needed to work on the basic nature of the alphabet and its instruction. More the nature of consonants, I was intrigued that the akara too can be phonated in two ways. That is, by pushing the tongue forward or by pulling the tongue backward. Hence, a doubt which of these two were correct. That is, for example, our basic language is of dha and ta. Now whether I say dha and ta, or I say dha and ta, whether it is dhati dhagina dhatirkita dhati dhage dinagina, or whether it is dhati dhagina dhatirkita dhati dhage dinagina. So there was a doubt here. In the quest, I went through all the grammar books that I had, both English and Marathi, but found no answer. I thus concluded that a person well versed in Sanskrit grammar needed to be consulted. In this search, I was led to my third guru, Professor Shiv Kumar Chaturvedi, a professor of Sanskrit grammar at the Bharatiya Sanskrit Sansthan, Lucknow. In our first meeting itself, I asked him who devised the order of the Devanagari script letters. No sooner that I asked him, he retorted back saying that these are not the ones to be instructed. Obviously, my second question was, then which are they that are to be instructed? He then recited the Maheshwar Sutras for me and said, these are the letter sequence that needs to be used for instruction, that is for Upadesha. I then recorded the Maheshwar Sutras and started working on them. The rest is history. Now, does anybody want to ask any questions about this, so that then we can start the topic right away? So how, one is that it is, you can use it as Upadesha. What should be the nature of the Upadesha? That is, one has to phonate to instruct. One cannot instruct by script. This is very important. So the question is this: how do we phonate the Maheshwar Sutras? Does anybody have any questions, or should I go ahead? Okay. So
does it mean?
Ah.
Does it mean
Ah.
to learn any sangeetam or an instrument? First, they should learn Maheshwar Sutras.
Yes, yes, and this is confirmed by Bhartrihari in his Vakpadiyam, that all subsequent evolutions of various Vedas or Laukik Sanskrit has to draw from the Maheshwar Sutras, and they are but the Maheshwar Sutras put to specific use. That is what he has stated in his Vakpadiyam, that though suppose it is Samaveda, so Samaveda also has to go back to the Maheshwar Sutras to define what they are reciting. In the case of Laukik Sanskrit also, suppose I want to recite the shlokas, there too I have to use the Maheshwar Sutras. In the case of Samagan, in the case of Sangeet, whether it is northern or South Indian, one has to go to the Maheshwar Sutras to draw from it, so that he can then use the modulated aspects of the Maheshwar Sutras for that specific purpose. I think this is there in the Vakpadiyam of Bhartrihari, and this is a very great clue. So the Maheshwar Sutras are general in nature and have to be specifically adopted for each different shakha of the Vedas or the art forms that have evolved thereafter. So this is important. There is no doubt about it. And Bhartrihari has said that you cannot shun the Maheshwar Sutras. This was in fact a very big question that was raised by my guru. What has the Maheshwar Sutras to do with the tabla? What has Sanskrit to do with the tabla? I told him that you are mistaken. The simple answer for it is, I asked him that the tabla compositions are ruka in nature. How do you phonate the compositions? Suppose your father, who was a vocalist also, he had to instruct the notes, Saregama Padanisa, by phonating it and asking the student to try to imitate it. My question was this, that all gurus of art forms, they had only one answer for all questions. That was, listen to how I am saying and what I am saying and try to imitate it. So this is not an instruction. So you have to, and in my book, Revealing the Atlantis of Sanskrit Phonology, in Appendix 3, I have derived each of the swaras from the Maheshwar Sutras in all the three saptakas, and how a study of which led me to the conclusion that the Gandhara in the the first octave cannot be phonetic, and the Dhaivat in the upper octave too cannot be phonetic because there is no room for phonation. When I cross-examined it with one of my friends who had learned violin, he told me that was true. That ga in the lower octave and the dha in the upper octave cannot be phonetic. So these are certain things, and it is necessary that everyone draw from it. And hence even Nandikeshwar drew his whole Nritya Shastra from Maheshwar Sutras. So there is no doubt about it. So any other question?
So this gives a clue that Maheshwar Sutras should be the first lesson for any student in his life.
Whichever, even if you are teaching English.
Yeah, in every life. Anybody's student, any student.
Yes.
Should start with Maheshwar Sutra so that his vocal systems are properly tuned. Okay. So
these are certain important aspects, and hence it should. My issue is this, that why it has not been brought into the curriculum at the basic level.
Great. Let us go.
It should have been brought when it was an instruction. Children of 4 and 5 years of age have to be instructed to phonate, where the teacher's role is important. And unfortunately, the teachers who are teaching at primary or pre-primary level have no knowledge about how to instruct letters. They need to be trained, and they are the foundation of the whole future of the child. If the primary or pre-primary teacher succeeds, the child's future becomes bright. If she doesn't succeed, then the child is in grave problem. Many leave school by, say, 5th, 7th or 10th standard. The problem is not that they cannot think. The problem is this, that they cannot understand because of lack of lingual skills. This is the conclusion. So the Maheshwar Sutra should become a part of the Indian education system, irrespective of the vernacular language. This will make, because vernacular languages are but corruptions of the basic letters. So the child will be in a position to appreciate the corruption because he is speaking that tongue. For example, I'll give my own example. I'm an anglicized person. I could barely speak Marathi. However, after practicing the Maheshwar Sutras, I could easily speak Marathi better than what native Marathi speakers speak, because they are better than what they speak. Articulation is better. One more point is, I have never scored more than 35 marks in Hindi during my whole schooling career. However, after practicing these Maheshwar Sutras, I can speak Hindi as better than what any Hindi speaking person can speak. Because the native people who speak that language is so manifold and corrupted that it is very difficult to speak as they speak. And that is how people who migrate from one state to another are recognized by the natives in their own state. because they carry their basic vernacular corruption to speak that language. These are the problems. So if these problems in the Indian education system have to be addressed, Maheshwar Sutras should become the basis of instruction and not the Devanagari script. Any questions?
Proceed, please proceed.
So now we start with so somebody has raised his or her hand. So is anybody going to ask? Ratnam Vadla Modi. Do you want to ask any question?
Sarvebhya Namaskara. I want to ask, today is Hindi Dinotsava. So that does it mean that the language has on this day born out of the Devanagari script, or the Devanagari script has been born today? What does that mean?
See,
because Hindi and Devanagari are the same.
let me, in my previous lecture, I had explained this, saying that irrespective of the script, the Devanagari letters sequences are adopted by all scripts, except Tamil. In Tamil, they do not phonate the letters ka, kha, ga and gha in these second, third and fourth letters in the class consonants. There is reason for that also, because the instruction has a problem. Secondly, the question is not how old Sanskrit is. From a pragmatic and practical point of view, Sanskrit exists today. What Sanskrit can do is it can unite the country across lingual groups, so that a speaker of one language will appreciate the speaker of another language. For example, in South India, they are averse to Hindi. Now, what is the reason? The reason is simply that they cannot phonate those words. They find difficulty in phonating it. Those who go to school, they probably pick up. Even I had that problem. So, the Maheshwar Sutras will lead you to phonating any language, any vernacular language or any language, so that you can modulate your vocal organs and corrupt them in accordance with the language that you want to speak. For examples, you take the example of A. Now, A in English, if your ears are not sensitive, that A in English, according to English in the United Kingdom, has an A and an E in it. It has an A and an E. It is A. It is not A, as we say. So one will be in a position to appreciate the quality of a language and learn it also. So should I?
Actually, my question was that today is a Hindi Dinotsav day. Does it mean that it was day that Devanagari has been accepted, the letters have been framed?
See the sequence of the Devanagari script goes back to the Pratishakyas. It is not new. So it is not new. It has come down from the Pratishakyas.
Okay.
What I want to present or say is that you leave these Pratishakyas aside and work on the Maheshwar Sutras for instruction. As far as script is concerned, you can use any script if you know the alphabet. So the script, and therefore in India we find that each lingual group has innovated its own script. The script was not the problem. The problem was the Upadesha. And this you don't find in other parts of the world. In England, they use the same script, but the alphabet is different. In India, the opposite is the case. The alphabet is the same, but the script is different. So these problems are age-old and they need to be solved. So first is any Murthy has raised his hand.
महोदय कार्बे महोदय जी गुड इवनिंग.
Good evening.
तो ये जो आप कह रहा है जो महेश्वर सूत्रास, is there any structured syllabi to give instructions to the students, and how much time it will take to learn the Maheshwar Sutras, if at all one want to learn?
And now I'll answer this question. See, what has happened is nobody has worked on the Maheshwar Sutras after the Ashtadhyayi. Patanjali says that the Maheshwar Sutras are the general frameworks of letters that are used in Sanskrit. The modifications, for example, he says that the Rahasva letters or the Dirgha letters or the Pluta letters of all vowels have not been instructed. What or the Barakhadi has not been instructed. In my next lecture, I will present as to how we can use the Maheshwar Sutras as modulated or modified in actual language. So the letters in the Maheshwar Sutras are only the clue. For example, the elements of the chemical elements, all chemical elements, they do not exist independently. They exist in combination. They exist as modified chemical compounds. So in the same way, these letters have to be compounded or they have to be modulated to be used in languages. That study has to is much different than the Maheshwar Sutras. So an effort should be made. That is point number one. Point number two, I think in the Mahabhashya, Patanjali says that you take a small subject and work on it and make sutras out of it. If you are capable of doing it, you will get moksha. That is what is the statement. Now here, as far as the Maheshwar Sutras, the importance is of sutra literature. And the Devanagari script sequence are not sutras. So they are incapable of instruction. This is the problem. As far as your question is how much time will it take? It will not take more than a week's time for the child to pick up the Maheshwar Sutras, provided the instruction is correct, uncorrupt, and proper. And the teacher has been taught how to teach also, because people cannot innovate out of themselves. So you have to go through every part of it as far as teachers training is concerned. Now I did teachers training at a school in our hometown for 40 days. And I told them, why don't you use? What they told me was, the education department doesn't allow for such extraneous experiments. I told them that that is your business, it is none of my business. So basically, the Maheshwar Sutras are very easy to instruct and they don't take time. Practicing them over a long period of time. I required, say, 10 years of repetition and concentration on it, because I had no background. Nobody instructed me. I had to teach myself how to recite it. And being a tabla student, lay was the most important aspect of it. Because all musical instruments, all music is played in laya. It is rendered in laya. And so is the case with these Maheshwar Sutras, which I could relate. So,
will there be a difference in Maheshwar Sutras for Hindustani Gatram and for the Dakshinadi Gatram?
No. No, not at all. Why? How come it can be that? See,
No, because the tilanas are different.
let them be different.
Tilanas, they are different. For
Even though
Hindustani or for Karnataka.
Yeah, yes, accepted. Do you know that the Tala Prakriya in South Indian music has been people from North India, tabla players from North India went to South India to learn the Tala Prakriya in South India. And today what is played on the tabla is more than 50% the Tal Prakriya of South Indian music. This is there, but that has destroyed the tradition of the tabla because the two traditions are totally different.
Yeah, that is what I am worried. That is why I am asking.
No, but see, you can separate it. You can keep, see, is it that if I am speaking in English, I can't speak Sanskrit, or I can't speak Marathi, or I can't speak Hindi, or I can't speak any other language which I have learned? Not at all. In fact, I will follow the nuances of each of that language much better than the person who is speaking. This is what, see, this is what the Maheshwar Sutras teaches us. It teaches us to phonate, use this organ of phonation in a way suited. However, in the case of Sanskrit, it is inevitable. Otherwise, you will corrupt Sanskrit. That is the problem. And that is why Panini wrote his Ashtadhyayi. That Sanskrit as a language should not get corrupted. If it gets corrupted, rules are there so that they can rebuild it. For example, if you ask me, I will say I recite the Maheshwar Sutras as Panini would have recited it. Here we can align ourselves with the diction of Panini. What has happened in the Pratishakyas is that many people were involved in it, and hence the least common factor was what was written as Shiksha. However, with Panini, it was his diction that on the basis of which he compiled the Maheshwar Sutras and adhered to it throughout his Ashtadhyayi. So, from this point of view, the Maheshwar Sutras are much more authentic as instruction than is the Devanagari script sequence. Any more questions?
Let us proceed.
So, recitation of the Maheshwar Sutras. The Maheshwar Sutras read like this. A I una ruluk e ong I ouch haya varat lana yamangana nama jabhaya ghada dasha jaba gada dasha khapa chatata chatatava kapaya shashasara hala. Now, those who are attending this seminar, webinar, it is very easy. Those who have a music background of music. So you say, look, ong I ouch haya varat lana yamangana nama jabhaya gada dasha jaba gada dasha khapa chatata chatatava kapaya shashasara hala. You will find that the beat, that the hand is not moved or the prayatna is uniform when you are reciting the Maheshwar Sutras properly. Therefore, they are also called as Samam Naya Sutras. See, I'll really, on the Damru also it can be played, but look, look. Now for every beat you have a letter, but for for two beats so it is a dirgha swar. So look, I ouch haya varat lana yamangana nama jabhaya gada dasha jaba gada dasha khapa chatata chatatava kapaya shashasara hala. So all the other letters are short. So this is one aspect of it. Damru is still better. Now, is anybody, the question was how much time does it require to learn the Maheshwar Sutras? Is anybody ready to volunteer oneself so that I can demonstrate that how much time does it require? Can anybody volunteer?
Last year,
No, I will instruct. What is the problem?
Mahodaya.
Are you ready?
Mahodaya.
Archana, isn't it?
I
Archana has
my
raised her hand.
Mahodaya. I raised
Yes.
my hand, but the voice who said was not me. I raised my hand
Uh,
to volunteer, but the person who spoke, are you ready? That wasn't me. I am ready to.
say, ठीक है ना. Let us volunteer. Let us be open to what you can say. We have to expose ourselves for anything new that we are going to learn. ठीक है फिर. If there are
Yes.
two, I don't mind. If the two have volunteered, that is also not a problem.
Yes, sir, I am ready.
So we start with it.
I am also ready, sir. Suresh Babu.
We can work on it. So in the Maheshwar Sutras, that recitation of Maheshwar Sutras on YouTube, you will find that Iuna has been recited as Ayun. Now this needs correction. What is the correction? How do we correct it? So you say all these letters are calls. They are not script letters. They are calls of humans. So you see at A, E and U as calls. So you say A. Say, those who have offered themselves and volunteered. No, it is A. This is A. Then anybody else who would like to volunteer? So it is This is a call. This is basically a call. Second, the second letter is E. So you say E. If you are repeating it twice, you have solved the issue. Then say U. What is the difference? Now, bas. Bas. A, E, U, na. It should be a call. It should be a call. A, E, U, na. You got it. No, not it is O. Bas. So it is, once you practice as in music, you practice it, you will say It is a call. How much time did we need? How much time did we require to instruct?
2 minutes.
If the instruction is right. Similarly, now Ru and Lu both are Murdhanya Swaras. Now I had a Murdhanya. We Marathi people will phonate it differently. Ru will be phonated differently. Lu will be phonated differently. All that will happen. So when I met Professor Shivkumar Chaturvedi, he asked me to phonate the letter T. I just phonated T. He said, "This is not the letter." I was really astonished. I said, "I am speaking, I am saying T. You can hear it as T." What he did was very important. He showed me the vidhi to say T. What is the vidhi? Now, many languages do not have Murdanya Aksharas, or they are not so rampantly used. So, what he told me was, and I was really, I had lost my head in that process. So, what he said was, what is the vidhi for saying ta? Ta should be said as you put your head down like this, raise your tongue and put it to your Murdanya place, the uppermost place, and press it and just call. So it will be ta. What will be the call?
Ta.
Ta. No, don't say
Ta.
it is a call.
Ta.
It is a call.
Ta.
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 Now have you
Ta.
understood what a Murdanya letter means? Have you understood how the tongue shapes itself when uttering a Murdanya letter? So it is the same as now with a retroflex, that is a Murdanya articulation. Say R, where the tongue will not touch R, 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 look,
Look.
Look.
ah, look,
Look.
अबे हो vernacular pronunciation will affect you. You have for so many years that has been your tongue. So it is look. Now, so what is the importance is this, that lu is phonated behind ru. It is phonated posterior. Do not bring your tongue forward to ru look.
Look.
Ru look.
Look.
Ru look. Yes, look. It is not many phonated in various ways, but both are savarnas of each another. So the articulation for ru and lu should be the same. For South Indians, where they use ra, if you want to still correct it, because ra is also more than, so you say ru, lu, ru. One behind the other. Lu, lu. Look. Look. ठीक है?
I
नहीं, call. It is a call. Una.
I una look.
ठीक है?
I una look.
नहीं, not I una.
Look.
And now suppose you do when you are not under instruction, you have a doubt. You say this is say so this is e and u as calls. This is not how it is used in while we are speaking. It only reveals the articulatory part of it. So una ru look, look. You have improved yourself by 50% in a span of 5 minutes. Now the rest are easier. Ong. O. Again is ong. Ong.
Aong.
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 No, not Aong. Aong.
Aong.
Ah.
Aong.
Aong.
Ah.
Aong.
I out.
I ouch. I ouch.
I out.
I
I
out.
ouch.
Ah.
I ouch.
How much time did it require?
1 second.
Ah. They are very easy. If I say you tell, oh, you will not be in a position to imitate because I am not describing my articulation. I have to describe my articulation while I am instructing. And I should know what that articulation is. If I do not know that articulation, I will not be in a position to instruct. So, look, ong, I out,
I ouch.
I out, I out.
I ouch. I ouch.
I ouch.
Look, look. I ouch.
I out. Now what have you marked? The question is, what have we marked in it? We have marked that the sequence of letters enforces for you to phonate the subsequent letter behind the first letter. So the second letter is phonated posteriorly to the first letter as a, e, u, not a, e, u. You're getting my point? There is a very specific articulatory process in the sequence itself. It is a, e, u, and it is a call. Similarly, look, it goes behind. Look.
The pronunciation of subsequent letter is influenced by the earlier letter.
By the script, it is instruction. You, I, or all would speak the way we have learned from our parents or teachers. Now, for Sanskrit, you require specific instruction. Now the further part comes. Now, in the Devanagari script, what they have done is A, I, O, Au. Now, what happens? The subsequent letter is phonated ahead, anteriorly to the first letter. So it will become A, I, O, Au. This is how it has got corrupted. So this has led to a complete corruption of Sanskrit, and in the process given rise to regional languages as far as their formal character is concerned. So going ahead again, the next fifth sutra is Haya Varata. Now here all instruction is as Yaralavasha Shasahara. Now this sequence is problematic. Panini doesn't instruct like this. Panini says Haya Varata. Haya Varata. So one is
Varata.
Haya Varata.
Haya Varata.
Haya Varata.
Haya Varata. Simple.
Haya Varata.
Then be careful. Lana has to be, because it is a savarna of Ra, and Ra being Murdanya, La has also to be Murdanya. So it will be Lana.
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 Haya Varata. Lana.
That is what it is. It is not dental. La cannot be dental if Lu is not dental. If they have to be, see, there are three things for Savarna. Either the Asya should be the same, or the place of phonation should be the same, or the tongue should be the same. The tongue shape should be the same. At least one out of this should be the same. Then only it will become Savarna. Otherwise, how it will become Savarna?
Lana.
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 As far as our vernacular languages are there, we can speak as we speak. And there is an example in the Mahabhasha, in the first Annik itself. He has stated about Yarvan and Tarvan, two brothers who were masters in Veda recitation, in the Vedas. He writes that when he used to speak with commoners, he used to speak their tongue. However, while he used to recite the Vedas, he used to remain as was instructed to him. So both are possible. Both are possible. This is what Patanjali has documented. How can we question it? There is no reason to question it. So these are certain aspects which we need to place before ourselves and work accordingly. So Haya Varata Lana. Haya Varata Lana. And La has got a Na which is also Murdanya. So it is Lana.
Lana.
Haya Varata Lana.
Yeah.
Haya Varata
Lana. Again.
Haya Varata Lana.
Varata.
Lana. Now
Haya
Varata.
Varata
Lana.
Lana. In the previous, in Haya Varata, Ra is Murdanya. Ra is Murdanya. Following Ta is also Murdanya. Haya Varata, Ra is Murdanya, Ta is Murdanya. In the next sutra, La is Murdanya, Na is also Murdanya. So that Savarna business has been addressed in the sequence of the Maheshwar Sutras along with the it letter or the Pratyahara. So the Pratyahara tells us what is the phonation of the letters preceding it. Going ahead, it is Jhabhaiya. Jhabhaiya.
Jhabhaiya.
Jhabhaiya.
Jhabhaiya.
Jhabhaiya. Abhi, in this, Iya is a anunasik.
Jhabhaiya.
With the tongue shape as that of Cha Varga. Cha. In Cha Varga, the tongue is spread. So, Iya.
Jhabhaiya.
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 Now, Ghada Dasha.
Ghada.
Ghada Dasha. Sha is again Murdanya. Remember. Ghada Dasha.
Ghada Dasha.
Jaba Ghada Dasha.
Jaba Ghada
Dasha.
This Sha is the first one. Shashasara ka pehla. Yara Lava Sha. This Sha is there. Jaba Ghada Dasha.
Jaba Ghada Dasha.
Then Khapa Chatata Chatatava.
Gabha Jatata.
Khapa Chatata Chatatava. Khapa Chatata Chatatava. And Khapa Chatata Chatatava. ठीक है you can rehearse ठीक है तो नेक्स्ट अभी कपया अभी कॉल है
Kapaya.
कपया
Kapaya.
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 No, it is ya. It is not ya. It is ya. It is not nasalized. So it is ya.
Kapaya.
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 No, you don't say ya. See.
Kapaya.
Ya.
Kapaya. Kapaya.
The last it letter is half articulated because no letter is following it. Then this sutra is very important because this is tremendously corrupted across Indian languages. That is Shashasara.
Shashasara.
Shashasa.
Shashasara.
Shashasara.
Shashasara. Now what is Shashasara?
Shashasara.
Shashasara is nothing but the Chatatava without its plosive aspect. It is modulated. It is a modulation of Chatatava.
Chatatava Shashasara.
Shashasara. Bas. So cha is Murdanya. So Shashasara. Shashasara.
Chatatava
Shashasara.
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 So this is done.
Hala. Shashasara. Hala.
So have I addressed the question that whether Maheshwar Sutras can be instructed within a short time?
Mahodaya, we
Yes.
left out one. Yamagananam we left out.
One is left out. So ya, ma, nga, na, ma. Ya,
Anuswara.
you what you do is now mukha nasika vachano nunasika. This is the sutra in the Ashtadhyayi. Mukha nasika vachano nunasika. So yeah, what happens is that it is totally nasalized. So you don't nasalize it. You don't close your mouth. So it is ya. Air should come from your mouth, not just from your nose. It is mukha nasika. So air will be phonated from the mouth. Air will go from the mouth as well as from the nose. But which part of it will come from the nose and which part will come from the mouth? The first part will come from the nose and the later part will come from the mouth. So it is ya. Ya.
Excellent.
Ya. Ma. Ya. Ma. Nga.
Nyamangan
Na.
nama.
Na. Yamangana nama.
Nyamangana nama. Nyamangana nama. Nyamangana nama. Nyamangana nama. Nyamangana nama. Nyamangana nama.
So are you satisfied? Have I been in a position to instruct?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is what it is about. Therefore, now another question comes. Now this is what Sanskrit grammar has destroyed traditional Vedic and Laukik Sanskrit. The next thing is the Vivruta. Now, through grammarians, this last sutra of the Ashtadhyayi has been interpreted as if the Vivruta becomes Savruta. That is, A becomes A. Now, this is ill-founded. And Patanjali has said that the A is Vivruta with under the Vartik. Akarasya Vivrutopadeshe Akarasya Grahanartha. In order that A become the Savarna of A, it is necessary that A is phonated Vivruta. Now, here there has been a change in the phonetical structure if you make A Savruta. Therefore, the last sutra is important. Why? It so happened that I heard these sparrows calling twice. Chew chew, not chew. How did they call? Chew chew. So this chew chew business is nothing but this business. Is a call. Repeated twice. So for every letter, if you want to determine the place of articulation of a letter, the best way is to call it twice independently. So you say kaka, khaka, gaga, ghaga, nganga, chacha, chacha, jaja, jaja, nyaya. Simple. No, you don't need anybody. You can work it yourself with the help of this last sutra of the Ashtadhyayi. This is very important. So the Vivruta akarasya vivrutopadesha akarasya grahanartha. So this. Now, therefore, the next aspect, that is the Maheshwar Sutras as a tool for instruction in the place of the Devanagari script. Now I have demonstrated that it can be taught, it can be instructed in classrooms at primary and pre-primary level. There is no problem if the teachers are just initiated into it and they practice it over time through their professional training and practice. Children will change dramatically. The point is that they will learn the script faster. My daughter told me that how do we instruct the child to write or to learn the script? We say ka, then the child says ka and writes ka. Then you ask them to write ka, teach him the script. Now, here there is a problem. Ask the child to say ka ka when he is writing ka. Ask the child to say ka ka when he is writing ka. Ask the child to say ga ga when he is scripting ga. This will hasten the process of the child acquiring the script. In my last lecture, I have also made sutras for the Barakhadi also. They are very simple. It is very easy. They kakka, kikki, kukku. What is it? Is it sutras? The child gets bored writing it time and again. So this can be hastened to a very great degree. And by the age of, say, 10 years, the child would be linguistically proficient. This is what we need to aim at. The thought process will start, subjects will come later. Basically, during these first 4 years, from first standard to fourth standard, what are we teaching children? We are teaching children simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences of a language. That is all that we teach the child, and all the material that is there in their curriculum is to aid the child to pick up these sentence formats. So once the child is in a position, first point number 1 is to articulate each letter separately and to speak. We have solved half the problem. So this is point number 1. The next point is Siddhe Shabdartha Sambandhe. Now what the problem is that the phonated sound dies immediately after you have phonated it or after you have listened to it. Where does it get recorded? It has to get recorded in the brain. Because the sound has died down, there is no sound experience of the word lingering. Therefore, in Sanskrit, this might not be as true in our vernacular languages, and it is absolutely not true in the case of foreign languages. They cannot get meaning without writing or reading. They have to go forward and backward to get the meaning of the sentence. And for this, they need the language to be scripted. The script format has come in for corrupted language. It is not necessary for Sanskrit. Because Sanskrit is so compatible. 1 minute. किसके बाद ऊपर होएगा first floor. So the point is, children get what you can say, they cannot grow further, develop further, because they cannot acquire or understand the simple sentence, compound sentence, and complex sentence. Now here Bhartrihari has made a statement. The statement goes like this, that the letter is a spota, the word or the pada is a spota, and the sentence is also a spota, where in the mouth as well as in the brain. The word, when you listen to the word, its impression is a lingual impression in the brain, to which the whole articulatory process is synchronized. In vernacular languages, this is disturbed. My question was this: how could people commit to memory 10,000 ruchas of the Rig Veda? How was it possible? I cannot commit to memory single sentences, leave alone a paragraph. And that is what we are making children do. Chandas are of such a nature that they are in Sanskrit, not in vernacular language. Somebody might have committed it to memory with lot of effort. But Chandas is the thing that is most compatible with human memory. So when we have gone through this instruction process of the Maheshwar Sutras, the child will be very good at memory. Therefore, one. Secondly, memory is not sound memory, it is meaning memory. When I say a crow is sitting on a mango tree, I ask anybody to reproduce it. Does he reproduce the sound or does he reproduce the meaning? What has he to reproduce? He has to reproduce the meaning with the help of his phonation. There is a cow on the mango tree, or a crow is sitting on a mango tree. Therefore, Siddhe Shabdartha Sambandha is very important. He can only repeat if he has taken the meaning of it. And by making use of the meaning, he can then phonate it back. So, Siddhe Shabdartha Sambandha is very, very unique to Sanskrit. People could reproduce whatever they listened for an hour or half an hour, verbatim. How come that happened? It is not mystical. It is this instruction that is making the whole thing work. And the next point is, Maheshwar Sutras is the only tool to undo vernacular diction and restore Sanskrit to its former glory. Maheshwar Sutras is the only tool to undo vernacular diction and restore Sanskrit to its former glory. Next is, by learning to recite the Maheshwar Sutras, one has not to give up his vernacular diction. In fact, the vernacular diction improves. What the Vedas won't do in decades, the Maheshwar Sutras would do it in years. The last sentence is absolutely true. The Maheshwar Sutras is the door to the opening of the Madhyama and the Pashyanti. Thus, it becomes a part of yoga, which Patanjali has said. Patanjali has said only the Vaikhari is seen. The rest of the three, that is Madhyama, Pashyanti and Para, are hidden in a cave. If we want to bring it out of the cave and see it by our own eyes, it can only be achieved with the help of the Maheshwar Sutras. So, I have completed this webinar up to this point. Now, if anybody wants to ask any questions or wants to discuss, you need not ask questions. I am talking about the Maheshwar Sutras, which are beyond any doubt. So, if there are any questions, I would like to address them. I'm sorry.
Mahodaya,